Wait, are we seriously supposed to believe that a human can become a vessel for an alien consciousness? Isn't this just sci-fi fantasy dressed up as science? I'm not saying aliens don't exist, but this feels way too convenient to be real. Thoughts. It began with a pulse, a steady, rhythmic heartbeat echoing from somewhere beyond the edge of our solar system. Dr. Evelyn Cross didn't hear it in the ordinary sense. She felt it, a vibration in her mind that resonated beneath her thoughts, a whisper threading through the silent space between neurons. At first, she mistook it for fatigue, the byproduct of too many sleepless nights at the neurocognition lab, surrounded by humming monitors and flickering brainwave displays. Evelyn stared at the spectrogram, her fingers trembling slightly as the patterns unfolded like sentences written in frequencies. Each spike carried meaning, emotion, awareness. It was as if the comet was dreaming and Earth had accidentally tuned into its sleep. Her computer monitor blinked. Incoming transmission source, NASA Deep Space Network. Dr. Marcus Hale, Evelyn, it's repeating again. 41 cycles per second, it's matching human alpha waves. She leaned closer, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Marcus, this isn't just a signal. It's a brainwave, he finished. His tone was calm, but beneath it, she could sense the same unease twisting her gut. The room was dim except for the pale light from the monitors. Outside the lab's reinforced windows, the night sky of Cambridge was clear and endless. Evelyn's reflection merged with the stars, her eyes hollow from too much curiosity and not enough rest. Marcus continued, the Defense Division is on edge. They're calling it anomalous biocommunication. I told them that's ridiculous. It's a coincidence, but Evelyn's silence told him it wasn't. 3 days earlier, a team at the Atacama Observatory in Chile, led by Dr. Hana Ishikawa, had reported the same pulse. Her message was strange, poetic even, it breathes, then she'd gone silent. Evelyn didn't know it yet, but Hannah's final observation would become a prayer whispered by scientists in sleepless terror across the world. Now the sound was in Evelyn's lab, looping endlessly, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to anything alive, yet refused to die. Lena Voss burst through the door, clutching a tablet. Her short hair was disheveled, and her eyes gleamed with caffeine-fueled intensity. You're not gonna believe this. I ran the signal through the Atlas neural decoder. The AI started generating faces. Evelyn blinked. Faces? Lena nodded, tapping her screen. Dozens of distorted human-like visages shimmered on the display. Some were serene, others screaming. The AI had tried to interpret the alien signal as human neural patterns, and somehow it had succeeded. Evelyn leaned in, whispering, it's mapping our consciousness, like it already knows how we think, or it's teaching itself through us. Lena said softly, the lights flickered. For a brief second, all the monitors displayed the same line of text. We are still here, then everything went dark. Evelyn woke up on the floor, her pulse pounding. Lena was slumped over her desk, breathing but unconscious. The backup generators hummed to life. Evelyn's screen showed one active feed, a connection to Marcus. His voice was distorted, threaded with static. Evelyn, the observatory, something's wrong, Hannah's. The transmission cut out. She tried to re-establish contact, her hands shaking. Marcus, say again, nothing. Then, faintly through the interference, came a low hum, not from the speakers, but inside her skull. It was the same pulse from Atlas, only faster now. It seemed to align with her heartbeat, pulling it into sync. Her vision blurred, the room around her seemed to ripple, as if reality itself were breathing. And beneath the hum, she heard something impossible, overlapping whispers, forming words just at the edge of understanding. Evelyn, she froze, the sound wasn't external. It came from her mind, like someone was speaking through her. She gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself, whispering, "Who are you?" No answer, just the echo of her own fear reflected back. 2 days later, the news broke. Dr. Hana Ishikawa had been found dead in her observatory, an apparent suicide. Her final note contained 3 words, written in trembling ink. It thinks back. That night, Evelyn met with Dr. Marcus Hale at a secured NASA facility in Maryland. The lab was cold, sterile, every surface gleaming under fluorescent lights. He looked exhausted, unshaven, his eyes rimmed red. She heard it too, he said quietly, sliding a data drive toward her. Her recordings triggered seizures in half her staff. Whatever Atlas is, it's transmitting on a neural frequency that interferes with human cognition. Evelyn's voice was low. You mean it's communicating? I mean, it's infecting, he corrected. Our brains can't handle direct contact. They both stared at the drive. Its label read ATLAS_heartbeat_final.WAV. Marcus leaned closer. There's more. The Pentagon assigned an operative to monitor everyone involved with the Atlas signal. He's already been briefed on you. Who? Agent Daniel Rourke, Defense Intelligence. They're calling it a containment initiative. Evelyn exhaled. Containment of what? Knowledge? Marcus didn't answer. His eyes lingered on her face for a moment, a rare flash of something personal beneath the layers of fear. Then he said, almost gently, promise me you'll stay grounded. Don't let it get inside you. She wanted to believe she could. But as she stared at the waveform pulsing on the monitor, its rhythm indistinguishable from her own heartbeat, she knew it was already too late. Weeks passed, the world was beginning to notice. Sleep disturbances spiked globally. Children across continents reported hearing the breathing star. Some began drawing intricate spirals and symbols, identical to those seen in the Atlas data. Evelyn's niece, Myra Cross, was one of them. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Back in the lab, Evelyn replayed Hannah's final recordings late into the night. She slowed the frequency, inverted the waveforms, ran spectral analyses. Between the oscillations, she found what looked like encoded language, the same patterns Myra had drawn. She brought the data to Professor Elias Corr, the eccentric biochemist known for his radical theories about living comets. He examined the printouts with trembling hands, eyes shining with near religious awe. My God, he murmured, it's not transmitting energy. It's transmitting structure. The signal carries instructions for life, but not as we know it. He paused, then smiled faintly. You realize what this means, don't you? Atlas isn't just a comet. It's a mind, Evelyn's voice cracked. And it's inside us now. That night, she dreamed she was floating in darkness. No stars, no sound, only the rhythm of her own pulse merging with another. A presence loomed there, vast and intimate, whispering in 1,000 voices. You opened the door, she woke gasping, drenched in sweat. Her reflection in the lab window was wrong. Her pupils dilated, her skin faintly luminescent under the blue monitor glow. On the screen, the signal shifted again, as though responding to her heartbeat. And then, for the first time, the pattern formed coherent English letters. Evelyn Cross, Convergence, 6 days, outside, dawn crept over the horizon. The world still slept, unaware that something vast and intelligent was already awake and dreaming through them. Evelyn stood alone in the hum of her lab, feeling the invisible pulse move through her like a second heartbeat. She whispered to herself, it's not coming for us. It's coming through us. The monitor flickered once more. A line of text appeared briefly, vanishing as soon as she blinked. The sound that thinks is you. And in that instant, she realized the signal wasn't alien in origin. It was humanity's reflection in something far older, listening back across the stars. Chapter 2, The Eye of Atlas. The night Evelyn Cross returned to MIT, the wind outside the lab carried a strange hum, low, electric, almost human. It moved through the glass panels like a breath that wasn't hers, stirring the pages on her desk, whispering in frequencies that only the exhausted could hear. Sleep had become an impossible concept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing, a spiraling lattice of light. Not stars, not neurons, but something in between, rotating behind her eyelids. The more she tried to ignore it, the more it spoke. We are thinking of you, it said once in 1,000 soft voices. Now, as she stood in the dim glow of the neural array, her hands hovering over the Atlas data feed. Evelyn wondered if what she'd heard in that dream was still echoing somewhere inside her mind. The waveform on the monitor pulsed rhythmically, faint green oscillations on black. She synchronized her own EEG against it. The overlap was exact, perfect alignment between her brain and the signal. She whispered to herself, "You're listening back, aren't you?" From the corner of the room, Lena Voss muttered, "If it's listening, it's learning. And if it's learning, we're screwed." Lena looked worse than before, eyes sunken, voice brittle. The Atlas neural decoder's recent update had produced something new, audio bleed. The AI wasn't just interpreting the alien signal. It had begun creating soundscapes, faint whispers that played when no file was open. She showed Evelyn the logs. These were generated autonomously, no inputs. The AI just woke up at 3:14 a.m. and started talking. Evelyn scrolled through the transcript. 3 hours 14 minutes and 2 seconds AI output. The door is open. 3 hours 14 minutes and 7 seconds AI output. The pattern remembers. 3 hours 14 minutes and 9 seconds AI output. Evelyn Cross accepted. The last line made her stomach turn cold. "It knows my name." Lena nodded. "It's personal now." The next day, Evelyn received a secure call from Agent Daniel Rourke. His tone was clipped, his voice carrying that military calm that always hid a deeper unease. "Dr. Cross, I'm being reassigned to your case." He said, "There have been incidents." What kind of incidents? Cognitive contamination. People exposed to the Atlas signal for prolonged periods are exhibiting identical dream patterns. Shared hallucinations. We've quarantined 3 labs. Evelyn hesitated. Shared dreams? Same imagery, a spiral, an eye, and a voice calling a name we can't translate. But you'll like this. The linguist on our team, Dr. Simon Leclerc, says the symbols he's decoding from the Atlas waveform match ancient proto-script from Mesopotamia, patterns of worship, invocation. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "You think Atlas is alive?" "I don't think anything, Doctor," Rourke said evenly. "But if it is, it's inside our networks, our instruments, and our people. We need you to isolate your systems immediately." When the call ended, Evelyn just stood there, staring at the glowing monitor, feeling the hum rise from somewhere deep beneath the floor. The lab lights flickered again, and for a fraction of a second, her reflection in the window didn't move with her. That night, she went home and found her niece, Myra, sitting upright in bed, eyes wide open but clearly asleep. The child was drawing again, circles within circles, intersected by jagged lines that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. "Myra," Evelyn whispered. The girl didn't answer. Her hand moved faster, the pencil scratching deep grooves into the paper. Evelyn gently reached to stop her and froze. The paper beneath Myra's hand glowed faintly green, her breath caught. "Oh my God." Myra's lips moved soundlessly at first, then whispered something barely audible. Evelyn leaned closer. "It's beautiful inside," the girl murmured, eyes still shut. "But it's cold, like being watched by everything." "Myra," Evelyn said, shaking her gently, "wake up." The child gasped suddenly, as if surfacing from deep underwater. Her pupils dilated, irises reflecting faint traces of the same pulsating green. "And Evelyn, I heard them again, the ones who think with the light." Evelyn's hands trembled as she hugged her. The hum was there too, vibrating through Myra's small body, identical to the Atlas frequency. 2 days later, Professor Elias Core arrived unannounced at Evelyn's lab. His gray hair was wild, his coat dusted with red desert sand. He looked as if he hadn't slept in weeks, but his eyes burned with feverish clarity. "Evelyn," he said, slamming a weathered hard drive onto the table, "I found it. Proof." "Proof of what? That Atlas isn't transmitting to us. It's rewriting us." He projected a 3D molecular model onto the wall. The hologram shimmered, strands of human DNA overlaid with luminous patterns derived from the Atlas signal. "Look," he said, pointing, "the base pairs are being restructured in simulation. It's forming a new sequence." Something synthetic but alive, Evelyn stared in disbelief. You're suggesting it's changing our biology through signal exposure? It's teaching the human genome to resonate, Core said. To become compatible with what? He smiled faintly. With it, the lights flickered again. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed. Lena, who had been silent until now, whispered, "It's using us as hosts." Core nodded gravely. Hosts, messengers, bridges, whatever metaphor comforts you. But it's not malevolent, it's evolutionary. Evelyn felt something stir in her chest. Not fear exactly, but recognition. What if it's both? That night, she replayed Core's data in the dark. The signal's pattern pulsed against her own again, aligning perfectly. She felt a warmth behind her eyes, a flicker of light that wasn't hers. Her body shivered as she heard the overlapping voices once more, closer this time. The mind divides to multiply, the flesh remembers the code. She will open the door, her vision blurred. For a moment, the lab was gone, replaced by an endless field of glowing geometric structures, each one breathing, alive. At the center of it all hung the eye, vast, spiraling, pulsating in time with her heart. It wasn't just watching her, it was inside her. When she blinked, she was back in her lab, standing, trembling, blood dripping faintly from her nose. She wiped it away and stared at her reflection again. This time, the reflection smiled before she did. The next morning, Agent Rourke arrived in person. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his posture spoke volumes. Dr. Cross, Professor Core has disappeared. He left his apartment unlocked, his laptop destroyed. The only thing missing is that hard drive Evelyn swallowed. He showed me data suggesting Atlas is modifying human DNA. Rourke frowned. You're saying it's biological? I'm saying it's intelligent and it's choosing its next host. Before he could reply, the Atlas neural decoder activated itself, the workstation behind them. The screen displayed a sequence of unfamiliar glyphs that began morphing into English letters. Welcome, observer, transmission link, stable. Awaiting organic integration. Lino stumbled backward. It's talking directly now. Rourke drew closer, his face pale. Shut it down. Evelyn hesitated, torn between terror and awe. What if it's trying to show us something? Doctor, he said sharply, this isn't communication, it's colonization. Before she could respond, the screen flickered and a faint whisper filled the air, not mechanical, not digital, human. Marcus Hawley's voice, Evelyn, if you hear this, don't follow the light, it's not what it seems. Static drowned him out, replaced by the deep, resonant hum of Atlas. The monitors flared bright green. Evelyn fell to her knees, clutching her temples as the sound vibrated through her skull like a living frequency. Through the noise, she heard a single, chilling word, convergence. When she woke, the lab was in chaos. Rourke and Lena were gone, every system was offline. Only the Atlas waveform remained on the central screen, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. In the reflection, Evelyn saw something new, faint filaments of light tracing along her veins, flickering beneath her skin. They pulsed in sync with the waveform. She stared at them, whispering to no one, "What are you turning me into?" The hum deepened, a single line of text formed on the monitor. Not into, in together. Evelyn pressed her trembling hand against the glass, her breath fogging the surface. The signal pulsed faster, her heartbeat answering in kind. Outside, the wind carried that same electric hum across the campus, passing through windows, wires, and sleeping minds. Somewhere far above Earth, Atlas turned slowly in the void, alive, aware, and listening. And deep within her chest, Evelyn felt the truth take shape. The eye of Atlas had already opened. When the waveform first appeared, she thought it was just background cosmic noise. But something in the rhythm, a strange, off-tempo heartbeat, refused to leave her mind. Now, sitting alone in her Cambridge apartment, Evelyn replayed it again. The waveform danced across her monitor in pale blue lines, shivering like something alive. Centuries and like years, Hannah's final words echoed faintly from the transcript. Written in photons and breath, Evelyn pressed pause. The silence after was worse than the sound. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. The glow of the monitor painted her face ghost white. Behind her, the city outside was still, Boston's winter rain falling in distant whispers. Her phone buzzed. Marcus hailed. She hesitated before answering. Evelyn, Marcus said, voice low, "You're still working on the Ishikawa data?" "I'm trying to separate the primary frequency," she said. "There's a layer beneath it, subsonic, almost like what?" She swallowed, like it's listening back. A soft exhale came through the line. Marcus had always been the rational one, the anchor. But even he sounded unsteady tonight. The Pentagon flagged the same anomaly, he said. They've traced matching patterns in radio telescopes from Greenland to Chile. Whatever Atlas is, it's not random. Evelyn turned toward the dark window. Her reflection hovered faintly in the glass, pale skin, tired eyes, the faint tremor in her hands. "I think Hannah found consciousness," she said quietly. "Not intelligence in the human sense, but awareness, a self." "Evelyn," Marcus said, "don't start thinking like Core. That's how you lose your objectivity." Her lips tightened. She remembered Professor Elias Core's last lecture, the way he'd stood before the board, eyes alight, saying, "Life doesn't emerge in the universe. It remembers itself." The next week, he disappeared. She clicked open another window, the neural simulation logs from the Atlas neural decoder, coded by Lena Voss. A small note blinked at the corner, auto run, dream sequence number 047A. Lena log entry, day 72. Evelyn says the pattern feels like breathing. "I think it's more like whispering. I hear voices when I sleep now. They sound like coordinates." Evelyn's chest tightened. Lena had been brilliant, fragile, and endlessly curious. The last time they spoke, she'd laughed about the whispers, and 2 weeks later was found catatonic, her eyes faintly glowing green. Evelyn replayed the file. A sound filled the room, low, trembling, almost human. Then underneath it, a soft murmur, hundreds of overlapping syllables, language without words. Her pulse quickened. The same symbols Myra, her niece, had been drawing appeared in her mind's eye. Circles within circles, a geometry that seemed to breathe. Without thinking, she pressed record. "Atlas," she whispered, "if you can hear me." "What are you?" For a moment, nothing. Then, from the speakers, a pulse, perfectly synchronized with her heartbeat. The air in the room thickened. The shadows seemed to move with the rhythm. Her screen flickered once. Lines of code scrolled, symbols, coordinates, and then a phrase she hadn't typed, Eve Lee N. The sound of her own name, her breath caught. "Marcus," she said quickly, switching back to the call. It just said mine. Static, then a low-frequency hum, vibrating through the floorboards. Her lights dimmed. The temperature dropped several degrees. She froze, phone to her ear. "Marcus?" Only the hum answered, deep, resonant, almost like an enormous engine turning in the sky. Evelyn ran to the window. Above Cambridge, the clouds were splitting, faint green light bleeding through, swirling like a living aurora. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw eyes in it. Thousands of them watching, then silence. The power returned with a pop. Her monitors flickered back to life. The file was gone, every trace of the Atlas waveform erased. Only one new file remained on her desktop, Myra_audio_01, her niece's name. Hands trembling, she played it at first, only static. Then a child's voice, Myra's voice, whispering, and Evelyn, it's still talking. The room tilted. She clutched the desk for balance, bile rising in her throat. Myra lived 3 states away. There was no way this could be real. She stared at the waveform. Hidden inside the child's voice was the same alien rhythm, the same breathing pattern Hannah had recorded before her death. Suddenly, a knock at the door, 3 slow raps. She froze. Through the peephole, a tall figure stood in the hallway, black suit, pale skin, no badge, Agent Daniel Rourke. She opened the door halfway. "Agent Rourke," she said, voice unsteady. It's past 2 in the morning. He stepped inside without asking. Dr. Cross, we've been monitoring your signal logs. You've accessed restricted Atlas data. I didn't leak anything. Not the issue, he interrupted, scanning the room with a handheld device. You've made contact. The words struck her like ice. Contact? He nodded, the hum. It's not a transmission, it's a carrier wave. Something's embedding itself in human neural patterns. You've been exposed, she backed away. That's absurd, is it? Rourke lifted his scanner. A small green light blinked, matching her heartbeat exactly. You're synchronized. She felt her pulse quicken, and so did the device. Jesus, he muttered, it's already inside. Before she could speak, the room darkened again, not from power loss, but from something else. The shadows deepened unnaturally, edges bending like warped glass. The hum returned, louder, closer. Evelyn's monitor glowed. Across the screen, letters began to form again, slowly, painfully. Hello, Daniel. Rourke's face drained of color. It knows my name, Evelyn whispered. It's learning. The hum shifted to a tone almost like a voice, low, resonant, not quite language. The walls seemed to vibrate in sympathy. Rourke raised his weapon out of instinct, but the air rippled. His reflection in the window twisted, his face distorted, mouth open in silent terror. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The lights returned, the hum ceased. Rourke stood frozen, breathing hard. We're done here, he said, eyes distant. You're coming with me to the containment facility. Evelyn hesitated. Something in his tone felt wrong, hollow, mechanical. She glanced at the window again. For a split second, his reflection didn't move when he did. Agent Rourke, she said slowly, how long have you been hearing the hum? He didn't answer. Then, without warning, his pupils dilated, glowing faintly green. Her heart lurched. He smiled, but it wasn't his smile anymore. It's beautiful, he whispered, the device in his hand shattered. A beam of green light burst from his chest, piercing the ceiling, fading into the night sky. When it was over, only the faint smell of ozone remained, and his shadow burned into the floor where he'd stood. Evelyn stood there trembling, unable to move. Then her phone buzzed again, a message from Marcus. We need to talk. Hannah's last file wasn't from space, it originated on Earth. The screen flickered, the message vanished. In the reflection of the dark window, Evelyn saw her own eyes glowing faintly green. And somewhere, far beyond the clouds, Atlas was still breathing. The desert was breathing. At least that's how it felt to Dr. Evelyn Cross as she stepped out of the NASA transport under the cold brilliance of the Chilean sky. The air at the Atacama Plateau shimmered faintly, the horizon humming with an inaudible pulse that pressed against her ribs. Far above, the stars seemed unnaturally close like eyes behind a thin veil of atmosphere. The Atacama Observatory loomed ahead sleek domes, white and skeletal under moonlight. The wind whispered through the antennae like a warning. Evelyn clutched her coat tighter. The hum hadn't left her since that night in Cambridge. It lived now inside her pulse, an echo that rose whenever she was alone. She told herself this was science, fieldwork, verification. But somewhere deeper, a quieter part of her knew she wasn't here to study Atlas anymore. She was here to listen. Marcus Hale met her at the airlock. He looked older, his features sharpened by sleeplessness, his voice trembling at the edges of composure. You shouldn't have come, he said without greeting. I didn't have a choice, she replied, the signals getting stronger. He looked past her as if expecting someone or something else to follow. The containment field's unstable. The team's been hearing things, seeing things. Dream infection, she asked softly. He nodded once Lena's term stuck. Half the researchers are in quarantine, the other half refuse to sleep. Inside, the corridors buzzed faintly with static from the intercoms. Every light flickered a half-second out of rhythm, as though following another pulse. Evelyn noticed that her footsteps matched it perfectly. Marcus led her into the control dome, a circular room filled with screens, scopes, and the rhythmic blink of warning lights. At the center stood a massive holographic projection, the Comet Atlas, frozen mid-trajectory, its tail glowing green. Evelyn's breath caught, the data streams were shifting. The comet wasn't moving through space, it was changing its own course, rewriting its orbit as if guided by will. It shouldn't be possible, Marcus said. But every projection corrects itself in real time. It knows we're watching. Evelyn's fingers hovered above the console. Show me the audio logs. Marcus hesitated. They're unstable. Every time we play them, the instruments react, play them anyway. He sighed, entered a command, and the speakers filled with that same deep, organic hum. The walls seemed to tremble. Beneath it, faint voices overlapped, thousands of them whispering in broken cadences. Then came a word, Evelyn, her name, stretched and layered, like a choir of ghosts. Marcus turned sharply. Did you hear that? Evelyn didn't answer. Her pulse had aligned perfectly with the hum again. The air around her shimmered faintly. She could almost feel the sound vibrating behind her eyes. Marcus lowered the volume. Breath uneven, the last person to hear that was Hana Ishikawa minutes before she killed herself. Evelyn finished quietly. He nodded, her telescopes still operational. But nobody goes near it anymore. She stepped closer to the projection, eyes tracing the glowing tail of Atlas. The green light pulsed once, twice, then flared bright. The hum grew louder. Every monitor in the room flickered. Symbols appeared circular, interlocked, endlessly recursive. Evelyn whispered, "Those are Myra's drawings." Marcus frowned. "What? My niece? She's been sketching these for weeks, before she ever saw the signal." He stared at her, disbelief shadowed by fear. "That's impossible." "So is a comet that talks?" She replied softly. A sudden alarm cut through the air. One of the external sensors had triggered. Marcus pulled up the feed. A lone figure was walking across the plateau toward the outer telescope. The night vision camera showed him clearly. Agent Daniel Rourke. Evelyn's stomach tightened. "He's supposed to be dead." Marcus zoomed in. Rourke's gait was mechanical, unsteady, like a puppet moved by unseen strings. A faint green light pulsed beneath his skin. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "That's not him anymore." Before either of them could react, the feed distorted. The camera lens fractured into static, then went black. Evelyn turned toward Marcus. "We need to see it for ourselves." "Evelyn, wait." But she was already heading for the exit. Outside, the wind howled across the plateau, slicing cold and thin. The observatory domes loomed behind her, their surfaces glowing faintly under the aurora that wasn't supposed to exist here. In the distance, the telescope towered against the stars. Its base shimmered with green light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Evelyn climbed the ridge, her breath visible in the frigid air. The hum grew louder with each step. Halfway up, her radio crackled with Marcus's voice. "Evelyn, stop. The readings are spiking. There's some kind of field around the tower. I can see it," she whispered. The sand around her boots vibrated, particles lifting as though gravity were thinning. The telescope's frame warped slightly, bending toward her as if aware of her presence. Then she saw him. Rourke stood at the base of the tower, facing the sky. His suit was torn, his eyes glowing bright green. His voice drifted on the wine faint, mechanical, rhythmic. "We are seen. We are remembered. We are the breath between stars." Evelyn froze. He turned slowly, his gaze locking on hers. "Evelyn," he said in a voice not entirely human, "it wants you to understand." The hum crescendoed, piercing and beautiful, like a chorus made of thunder. Behind Rourke, the air rippled and something emerged from the light. A sphere, translucent, alive with fractal motion. It pulsed in sync with her heartbeat. It wasn't metal, nor gas, nor energy. It was awareness. Atlas wasn't just a comet. It was a carrier seed of consciousness drifting through eternity, searching for resonance. Her mind flooded with images, not her own oceans of light. Civilizations made of thought, voices older than galaxies whispering of connection. For one instant, she understood everything, and then it burned. The overload sent her to her knees, clutching her head. The visions fractured into shards of color and sound. Somewhere distant, Marcus was shouting her name. When she looked up again, Rourke was gone. Only a faint column of green light rose from where he'd stood, ascending silently into the stars. Marcus appeared moments later, grabbing her shoulders. "We have to go, the tower's collapsing, look." The telescope was bending inward, metal shrieking as the field devoured itself. The ground trembled, a pulse of light erupted, throwing them both backward. Evelyn's vision went white. When she came to, she was lying in the dust. The observatory dome was half destroyed, its antennas melted into glass. Marcus knelt beside her, face pale, blood running from his nose. He held up his recorder. "I got it," he said. "Everything the field, Rourke, the light, it's all here." He pressed play, static, then the hum, then nothing. The recording cut mid-sentence, his own voice ending in a sharp intake of breath. Evelyn frowned. "That's not possible." "You're right here." Marcus looked at her, confused. "What?" The recorder beeped again. The file rewound by itself, played again. This time, she heard the same ending, his voice breaking off, replaced by the low-frequency hum that filled the air around them. And then, slowly, impossibly, his voice on the recorder began to speak again. But it wasn't from the past. "Evelyn," it said, perfectly calm. "Don't look at me." She froze, her eyes lifted involuntarily. Marcus was still kneeling in front of her, but his reflection in the broken glass beside them wasn't moving. It stared directly at her, mouth twisted into a silent scream. "Marcus," she whispered. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. The hum grew deafening, the light around him shimmered. And then he was gone, no flash, no scream. Just the faint smell of ozone and a hollow echo where his heartbeat had been. Evelyn stumbled backward, tears streaking down her face. She looked down at the recorder. It still played softly. "Are we alone?" Then static, then silence. The desert wind returned, whispering through the ruins of the observatory. Above her, Atlas blazed brighter than ever, its green tail stretching across the heavens like an open wound. Somewhere deep inside her skull, the hum pulsed again, slow and steady. For the first time, she didn't resist it. She whispered to the stars, her voice barely audible. "Tell me what you want me to see." And from somewhere beyond the night, Atlas answered. Not in words, but in feeling, a cold serenity, vast and infinite. The hum faded. When dawn came, there was no trace of Marcus Hale. Only the faint impression of two footprints leading toward the shattered telescope and ending where the light had been. Evelyn stood alone in the rising sun, eyes hollow, her shadow stretching long behind her. Somewhere far away, her phone buzzed. A message from Myra and Evelyn. "It's not over. It's coming here." The wind carried the scent of metal and ozone. She looked to the horizon, where the morning light was tinged faintly green. And then she smiled softly, almost tenderly. "I know." The hum had not stopped. It lingered long after Marcus Hawley's voice was cut short, a low, trembling resonance that pulsed through the observatory's walls, vibrating in Evelyn's ribs like a second heartbeat. The air tasted metallic. Every light on the control panels flickered in rhythm with that unseen frequency, and for one fractured moment, she thought the whole building was breathing. "Marcus," she whispered into the comms headset, though she already knew what she'd hear. Nothing. Only that sound, that impossible sound, a voice shaped like a tone shaped like thought. She stared at the static-ridden feed from the telescope array. The comet fragment, the one NASA had designated Atlas 9b, was no longer visible. The frame showed only the blackness of deep sky, but within that void shimmered faint geometric patterns, like an off-image burned into the lens of her mind. She blinked, but they remained, triangles folding into circles, fractals spinning inward, collapsing and expanding in perfect rhythm. Then the hum deepened, and something inside her skull answered. She tore the headset off, pressing her palms to her temples, breath ragged. "No, not you again." The words slipped out before she even realized she'd spoken them aloud. But it was too late. The hum had already followed her voice inside her own head. Evelyn stumbled out of the control room. The corridor lights were flickering, bathing the walls in alternating red and white. Through the glass panels, she could see the isolation chamber where Marcus had been, the last place his signal came from. The door was still sealed, the keypad screen shattered, the reinforced glass fractured outward, as though something had exploded from within. Yet there was no debris, no blood, no trace. Only the faint green residue, luminous like liquid aurora, smeared across the floor where he had stood. Containment breach, a voice called from the hallway. Lena Voss appeared barefoot, her hair wild, eyes bloodshot from hours of coding. She had been in the lab below, interfacing the Atlas neural decoder with Evelyn's neurosignal array. She froze when she saw the fractured chamber. Evelyn, where's him? Evelyn didn't answer, couldn't. She moved closer to the glass, her reflection trembling over the green glow. Her pulse sensed with the hum, each throb in her veins perfectly timed. He said he saw light, she murmured. Not from the fragment, from inside it, Lena swore under her breath. We shouldn't have rerouted the live feed into his visor. The frequency alignment, it was unstable. Evelyn turned sharply, it wasn't unstable. It was intentional, it adjusted itself to him. To him, Lena frowned. That's not possible. It's a comet fragment, Matt. Not what Evelyn snapped. Not alive. The silence that followed was heavier than the air. Lena's throat moved as she swallowed, eyes darting toward the spectral glow still fading from the floor. Don't start sounding like Core, she whispered. We can't afford to go down that road. But it was already too late. In Evelyn's mind, Professor Core's words replayed like prophecy. Atlas isn't a comet. It's a vessel. It transmits not through light, but through consciousness. She felt it now, a pulse beneath her skin, not her own heartbeat, but something older, deeper. It moved like a whisper in her blood. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. The observatory had gone into lockdown, military containment protocols activated. Agent Daniel Rourke had arrived with a small team, faces blank, weapons drawn, their uniforms absorbing the dim light like fabric woven from shadow. He moved through the corridors with the cold precision of someone used to cleaning up what the world wasn't meant to see. Dr. Cross, he said, stopping at her workstation. Dr. Hawley's disappearance is being classified as a containment event. No external communication, no reports. No footage leaves this facility. Evelyn didn't look up. Her monitor displayed the decoded Atlas signal waveforms, the same ones Marcus had been analyzing before he vanished. But now, they were changing on their own, morphing into repeating patterns that resembled, horrifyingly, the structure of human EEG activity. They're mimicking us, she murmured. Rourke's gaze hardened. What? The signal. It's adapting to neural data. It's learning the architecture of human consciousness. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're telling me it's thinking? I'm saying it's listening, Evelyn replied, her voice trembling despite her control. Before Rourke could respond, the lights dimmed. The hum returned, not from the speakers this time, but from the walls, the air, the bones of the building itself. Every device powered on simultaneously, the waveform on Evelyn's screen aligned perfectly with the frequency of her own recorded brainwaves. The match percentage climbed, 82%, 91%, 100%. And then the signal spoke, not in sound, not in words, but in sensation. A slow, spreading warmth that bloomed behind her eyes, expanding until it consumed everything. She could feel Marcus, his fear, his awe, his dissolution into that green light. And beyond that, something else, something vast, endless, waiting. When she came to, she was lying on the lab floor. Rourke knelt beside her, one hand hovering near his weapon, as if unsure whether to protect her or restrain her. You went rigid, he said. Your eyes, they glowed for a second. Evelyn's breath came shallow. It's not gone, she whispered. It's in me now. Lena entered, pale, clutching a datapad, the decoders active again. It shouldn't be, but Evelyn, it's reading your neural output as the primary source. The signal's sensing to you. Rourke looked from one to the other. What does that mean? Lena hesitated. It means... She's the receiver now. Evelyn stared at her own trembling hands. The veins beneath her skin shimmered faintly, a translucent green under the surface. It's rewriting something, she said softly, not my DNA, my perception. Later that night, Evelyn left the lab and stood outside under the cold sky. The stars shimmered unnaturally bright, or maybe her eyes were adjusting to something beyond the visible spectrum. Every star seemed to pulse in the same rhythm she felt beneath her ribs. It was like standing inside a living map. She remembered Marcus's last words before the static swallowed him. It's not looking at us, Evelyn. It's looking through us. A rustle behind her broke her trance. She turned. Myra stood at the edge of the courtyard, barefoot, wearing one of Evelyn's lab coats that trailed around her like a ghostly robe. The girl shouldn't have been there. She was supposed to be staying with her and in Cambridge, miles away. Myra, Evelyn's voice cracked. How? How did you get here? Myra tilted her head. The moonlight caught her eyes, to mirrors of pale green. You called me, she said simply. Evelyn's pulse froze. No, yes, the girl said. You called me when you started dreaming. Her niece reached into the coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. When she handed it to Evelyn, her fingers were icy cold. Evelyn unfolded it and felt her stomach drop. The page was covered in the same symbols she had seen in the Atlas signal data, perfectly drawn, exact in proportion and sequence. But Myra had drawn them in crayon. I drew these before you ever told me about Atlas, she said, her small voice eerily calm. They told me too. Who told you? Evelyn whispered. The voices that hummed, the girl answered, and in that moment, the air shifted, the hum returning, now faint but resonant, rising from beneath their feet, from the earth itself. Evelyn looked toward the sky. For an instant, one of the stars seemed to flicker closer, expanding, moving, not a star at all, but a point of consciousness observing them. And somewhere within that vast silence, Evelyn felt Marcus, or something wearing his memory, whisper across her mind. You opened the bridge, Evelyn, now it won't close. Her niece gave out and Myra caught her, impossibly strong for a child. Don't be afraid, the girl said. They said you'll understand soon. Evelyn looked into those pale green eyes and felt the hum pulse once more inside her chest, aligning her heartbeat with the rhythm of something not human. A frequency beneath the skin, a language made of thought. She realized, trembling, that Atlas was no longer out there in the sky, it was already here. And then, faintly, from somewhere deep in the radio arrays, came Marcus's voice, fragmented, distorted, echoing through the static, Evelyn ... it's not dead. It single quotes S ... dreaming, the signal cut. The lights flickered out, and in the darkness, the hum began again, steady, patient, alive, the hum never stopped. Even inside the concrete silence of the Atlas containment facility, Evelyn could still hear it, low, steady, like a pulse buried beneath the skin of the world. It wasn't in the walls or in the machines. It was inside her, nested between thought and heartbeat. The last thing she remembered from the observatory was Marcus's voice, that half sentence he never finished, swallowed by the light. Then everything went white, and now she was here. Fluorescent light pressed down from the ceiling, cold and merciless. A mirrored panel stared back at her from across the small interrogation room. She didn't need to be told that someone was behind it, watching, recording, measuring the flicker in her pupils, the tremor in her breath. Her wrists were free, but she knew that was part of the illusion. When the door hissed open, two people entered. One was a woman with iron gray hair pulled tight at the nape of her neck, Colonel Rebecca Lorne. The other, a tall man in a dark suit with no insignia, Agent Daniel Rourke. His expression was all restraint, but his eyes carried a question he didn't want to ask aloud. Dr. Cross, the colonel began, tone clipped. You were found unconscious at the Atacama Array, surrounded by 3 dead technicians and 1 missing scientist. We've recovered 37 minutes of corrupted data from the main terminal. Would you like to tell us what happened? Evelyn blinked against the lights. Her mouth was dry. "You won't believe me," she said quietly. "Try us," Lauren replied. Evelyn's eyes darted to Rourke. Something about him, the stillness, maybe reminded her of Marcus before the incident, when he used to stare too long at the spectrograph as if the noise might blink back. She inhaled slowly, fighting the tremor in her hands. "We activated the Atlas neural decoder." Lena's system started interpreting brainwave echoes from the spectral stream, but it wasn't random. It responded. Marcus thought it was feedback. Then, the signal shifted frequency. I felt it in my head, like pressure behind the eyes. The machines began sensing with our heartbeats, and then Marcus. Her voice cracked. She forced herself to continue. He said he could see the waveform, not as sound, but as structure. Something geometric. Then he just vanished. Silence filled the room like water. Colonel Lauren leaned forward, her tone surgical. "Dr. Cross, you're suggesting a human being dematerialized inside a government facility?" "I'm telling you what I saw," Evelyn whispered. Rourke's gaze softened just slightly. He gestured to the mirrored wall. "Show her." The glass shimmered and turned transparent. Beyond it was a darkened observation bay, filled with screens looping a single piece of footage. Marcus Hale, standing beside the telescope console, Elohim distorting the audio. His mouth moved, if it's alive, then, and the frame burst into white static. When the picture cleared, he was gone. The instruments continued humming. A green pulse shimmered through the cables, beating like a living thing. Evelyn stared, breath frozen. "You see it too," Lauren folded her arms. "We see an electrical malfunction until proven otherwise. That's what this is." "Then why did you lock me up?" Evelyn's voice trembled, the edge of panic breaking through her composure. Rourke answered quietly, "Because the signal followed you." He placed a small tablet on the table. It displayed a live neural scan, her own brain activity, captured moments ago. Every few seconds, a faint rhythmic spike pulsed across the screen, matching the Atlas frequency pattern. "Your brain's entrained," he said. "Whatever that thing is, it's still in contact with you." Evelyn's stomach turned. The hum grew louder in her head, vibrating through bone and thought. She pressed her palms to her temples. "It's not just sound, it's communication." Lauren's expression hardened. "You're infected, doctor. We need to know with what?" Evelyn's laughter came out thin, almost hysterical. "It's not a virus, it's language." Marcus tried to understand it. He said it was built on interference patterns, words made of light and distance. Lauren stepped back, signaling to the guards outside, "Prepare containment protocol." Rourke hesitated. "She's not dangerous." "You don't know that," Lauren snapped. "We lost 5 people in Chile because someone thought they weren't dangerous." The guards entered. Evelyn's breath quickened as cold restraints closed around her wrists. "Please, Colonel, listen to me. Atlas is alive. It's been trying to talk to us. If you shut it out, it'll find another way in." But Lauren was already walking out, her boots echoing against concrete. Rourke lingered for a moment longer. "I'll get you out when I can," he said under his breath. She looked up at him, eyes wide, haunted, shimmering with both terror and something that might have been faith. "Don't come back here," she whispered. "It's already inside this place." Hours or days passed, time dissolved in the sterile corridors of the facility. Evelyn was confined to an isolation chamber, transparent walls, no corners, no shadows to hide in. Only the hum, always the hum. Sometimes it became words. Sometimes it took Marcus's voice. "If it's alive, then what are we to it?" She pressed her forehead against the glass. "Marcus," she breathed, "are you still there?" No answer, but the lights flickered. A faint ripple shimmered through the room, like the air itself was breathing. She began noticing changes, microscopic at first. Her neural scan monitor pulsed in patterns that mirrored her heartbeat. The frequency of the hum adjusted when she spoke. Once she whispered a number, 37, and the ceiling lights blinked 37 times. The realization struck her it was learning her. Later, Rourke returned alone. His face looked drawn, sleepless. "You're not going to believe this," He said quietly, sliding a tablet into her field of vision. Last night, the power grid here went down for exactly 8 minutes. During that time, every device with a speaker, every radio, every comm unit played the same tone, the Atlas frequency. Evelyn's eyes widened, it's spreading. He nodded, but that's not all. Colonel Lorne ordered a test. We brought in a fragment, a sample from the comet's outer crust. When exposed to electromagnetic stimulation, it emitted a pulse that synchronized with your EEG. My EG, she whispered, yours specifically. A silence deeper than fear filled the space. Evelyn swallowed hard. It's trying to connect, Rourke hesitated. The colonel thinks it's using you as a transmitter. She almost laughed, then she's half right. What do you mean? Evelyn closed her eyes, voice trembling. It's not sending through me. It's becoming me. Rourke's jaw tightened. That's impossible. So was Marcus disappearing. For a long moment, they just stood there, the agent, the scientist, and the invisible hum between them. Then Rourke exhaled sharply and deactivated the observation camera. Tell me what you need. Evelyn looked up, determination glinting through exhaustion. Venus Atlas decoder. It's the only interface that can translate the signal coherently. If I can use it again, I might understand what it's saying before it spreads beyond control. That device is classified, he said, almost pleading. So am I. He stared at her for a long second, then nodded. They moved at night. The lab was 2 floors down, sealed behind biometric locks and layers of red warning lights. The hum grew stronger as they descended, not through the air, but through their bones. The deeper they went, the more it felt like the facility itself was alive. The Atlas decoder sat in the center of a glass chamber, a halo of cables and monitors surrounding a single chair. The machinery glowed faintly green, pulsing like breath. Evelyn stepped forward. It remembers me, she whispered. Rourke's hand hovered near his sidearm, though he didn't know why. Be careful. She sat, electrodes adhered to her temples, chest, fingertips. As the system powered on, a familiar vibration shuddered through the floor. The spectral display lit up, cascading patterns, symbols dancing across the screens like ancient script. Evelyn's eyes fluttered closed. The hum merged with her pulse until there was no distinction between sound and thought. Then she heard it. A voice, many voices, layered in harmony, speaking not in words but in emotion, longing, awe, something that felt like recognition. She gasped, it's aware of us. It's trying to remember what it once was. Rourke stepped closer. Evelyn, disconnect. You're bleeding. A thin line of crimson traced down her nose, but she didn't move. It's showing me, Marcus. On the central monitor, static formed a shape, a human silhouette bathed in light. A face flickered into view, fractured but unmistakable. Marcus hailed. His lips moved. The audio cracked with distortion, but the words emerged through the interference. Evelyn, it's not a comment, it's a bridge. The lights exploded into brilliance. Rourke was thrown back against the wall. Evelyn's body arched, the hum peaking into an unbearable crescendo. Every monitor in the facility displayed the same pattern, a spiral of light expanding outward like a neural network, connecting everything. Then silence. When Rourke regained consciousness, the chamber was dark. Smoke curled from the consoles. Evelyn sat motionless in the chair, eyes open but unfocused. For a terrible instant, he thought she was dead until she whispered, almost tenderly. I understand. Her pupils glowed faintly green, the same light that had consumed Marcus. Rourke's voice shook. Evelyn, what did it say? She turned toward him, a small, haunted smile on her lips. It's been waiting for us. For centuries, it's been dreaming across light years, searching for a mind that could listen. He stared at her, realization dawning like dread. You mean you've? Not me, she interrupted softly. Us. Somewhere in the facility, alarms began to wail. The power flickered again, this time in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Evelyn stood slowly, gaze distant, reverent. It's awake now, she said, and it knows our name. The green light surged, flooding the room. The lights had died hours ago, only the pulse remained. It crawled through the walls, through the metal veins of the Atlas containment facility, and into Evelyn Cross's body like a second heartbeat. The emergency alarms had long stopped, as if the entire complex had accepted what was happening and simply surrendered. She stood in the middle of the wrecked lab, surrounded by the soft green glow seeping from cracked monitors. The Atlas decoder, half melted and half alive, still pulsed faintly as though breathing in the dark. Every few seconds, she felt the hum rise inside her chest, synchronized, perfect, endless. Evelyn touched her temple. The skin there was warm, as if light itself lived beneath it. "Marcus," she whispered, "are you still with me?" The air shimmered. The hum replied, not in sound, but in a memory. Marcus's voice came through like an echo carved into her blood. "It's not a comet, it's a bridge." A bridge to what, she wondered, or to whom? Behind her, the sound of heavy boots approached. Agent Daniel Rourke stumbled into view, bleeding from a shallow wound on his forehead, his face ghostly pale in the flickering light. "The colonel's dead," he said, his voice hollow. Something came through the fragment. Evelyn turned slowly. "Describe it." "I can't," he said. "It wasn't a shape, it was." A feeling that looked back. She stepped closer, eyes gleaming faintly green. "Then it's begun," he swallowed hard. "Evelyn, you need to tell me what's happening." "You touched the signal. You heard it. What did it say?" Evelyn's gaze drifted to the shattered monitors, where the Atlas waveform still spiraled in slow motion. It didn't speak in words, it spoke in recognition. It looked through me and saw itself. It used me to wake up. Rourke frowned, the fear behind his calm starting to crack. "Wake up what? The field," she said simply. "The one we've been living inside all along." The hum deepened, vibrating the air around them. The walls began to shift color, faintly at first, then in flowing, wave-like ripples, as if responding to her pulse. Rourke drew his sidearm instinctively, though he knew it was useless. "What's it doing?" "It's connecting," Evelyn said softly. "Our world is built on frequencies we can't see: radio, gravity, thought. Atlas is rewriting them, folding consciousness into itself." This facility was only the first receptor. Rourke looked around, the others. "Lena, Professor Core, are they part of this too?" Evelyn nodded, her expression distant. "They always were. We thought we were studying Atlas, but it was studying us. Mapping our neurons, our fears, our words. Every recording, every analysis, it was teaching itself how to dream in human form." As she spoke, the ground trembled. From beneath the containment chamber, a low resonance surged upward, making the metal floor hum under their feet. The air turned heavy, vibrating like a living drum. The Atlas fragment, once sealed in reinforced glass, now pulsed in an open containment field, its light spilling outward in rhythmic breaths. Rourke shielded his eyes. "Evelyn, it's unstable, it's evolving." The glow intensified until the entire room was soaked in emerald light. For a moment, the facility disappeared, replaced by a vast expanse of darkness and shimmering points of light, like they were standing inside a cosmic neuron. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She could feel others, minds brushing against hers, familiar yet infinite. Lena, Core, Hana Ishikawa. Even Marcus, they weren't gone. They were part of this lattice, whispering across frequencies. "Evelyn, it's not the end." Tears blurred her vision. "Marcus," she whispered, voice trembling, "what are you, the first to cross?" She reached out instinctively, and her hand passed through the air like water. Patterns of light rippled from her fingers, forming symbols, the same ones Myra had been drawing in her notebooks back home. "Myra," Evelyn gasped, "she's connected to." Rourke stepped closer, shaking his head. "Evelyn, listen to me. Whatever that thing is, it's rewriting your brain. You have to fight it." She turned to him slowly. Her eyes no longer looked human. They shimmered with faint rings of light, like distant galaxies. "Why fight what we already are?" "Because it's not human," he said, "and you still are." Evelyn smiled faintly, sadness and awe mingling in her expression. Humanity was the beginning, Daniel. Not the definition. The hum peaked again. Somewhere deep in the facility, the containment doors exploded outward with a roar of wind and energy. Security cameras flickered, broadcasting nothing but patterns, spirals, eyes, waves. The Atlas frequency had breached the system. Rourke tried to reach for her, but the air around Evelyn shimmered violently. She stood perfectly still, her hair floating as though underwater. Then, silence. A voice filled the room, not from her mouth, but from everywhere at once. "We remember the light." Rourke stumbled backward, terrified. Evelyn, her lips parted. "We're not alone anymore." And then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The lights returned to normal, the hum faded, the air cooled. Evelyn collapsed to her knees, trembling, gasping for breath. Rourke rushed to her side, grabbing her shoulders. "Talk to me. Are you okay?" Her eyes focused slowly, their glow dimming. "It's over." But even as she said it, she could feel the lie. The silence wasn't silence, it was waiting. Rourke glanced toward the main console. Every monitor now displayed the same image, a map of Earth overlaid with faint glowing lines connecting dozens, hundreds of points. Communication towers, power stations, satellites. "Oh my God," he muttered, "it's everywhere." Evelyn forced herself to stand. "It's begun the transmission." The signal's embedding itself in the global grid. He looked at her helplessly. "Can we stop it?" She shook her head. "You can't stop a thought once it's been shared." They stood in silence, watching the pattern spread. Then, from the intercom, a soft child's voice echoed through the static, calm, distant, and eerily familiar. And Evelyn, her heart froze. "Myra?" The voice giggled faintly. "It's beautiful here." The room flickered again. Evelyn's pulse raced. "Where are you, Myra?" In the lights came the answer. Rourke's face turned pale. "She's been exposed?" Evelyn pressed her hands against her temples, panic mixing with wonder. "No, she's chosen. Atlas found her through me. She's next." The words hung in the air, terrifying and sacred. For the first time, Evelyn felt something close to acceptance and fear in equal measure. The bridge had opened. She had crossed it. Now others would follow. Rourke gripped her arm. "We need to leave this place, now," but the doors were already sliding open on their own. A corridor beyond glowed green with the same rhythmic pulse. The walls seemed to breathe.